Hey, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We welcome you to the fifth edition of brand-comm Connect. I am Praveen Siriyanavar, the Chief Operating Officer of brand-comm. Before I move into introducing our panel until our audience settle in, let me spend a few minutes talking about brand-comm. We are a communication company offering public relations, digital marketing, and brand advisory services to our over 50 clients across 7 markets. We are known for our long-standing relationships with our clients. To name a few, we have served some of our clients like Future Lifestyle Fashions for over 20 years, Kevin Care for over 17 years, Manipal Global Education for over 17 years, NR Group, the makers of Cycle Pure Agarbattis, for over 16 years now. And now our average client retention span is over 8.5 years. Ramanujam Sridhar founded brand-comm in the year 1998. He is a veteran in the advertising and brand consulting space. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now part of Madison World. So friends, today we are here to understand during these uncertain times how brands are donning an all-new avatar. We all have been hit hard by this pandemic psychologically, financially, and in terms of health. This has led to a shift in our thinking in terms of living life, running businesses, and taking care of our health also. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have with us 4 highly accomplished panelists, and I would like to introduce our moderator first. So, our moderator is Mr. Giri Prakash, and we take the liberty to call him Giri as we know him for many years now. Giri has been a key part of Bangalore's business media scene for over 3 decades. When someone wants to know something about Vijay Mallya, Giri is the go-to person because he is now better known as the author of the critically acclaimed The Vijay Mallya Story, the book he recently wrote. It is also more interesting because of the situation Vijay Mallya is in currently. So Giri is the associate editor and the chief of bureau of the Hindu business line in Bangalore. He has been a journalist for over 35 years now, and having cut his teeth at the erstwhile the Indian Express in the 1980s. He also had a short stint abroad, having worked with the Times in London. Come budget, his phone refuses to stop ringing as he is much wanted on the national TV. And let's hope no one calls him while we are live today. Giri is also a member of the Board of Studies, Coimbatore University, and one of the governing panels of MS Ramaiah University of Applied Sciences. In the next few minutes, Giri will bring out the best on this topic of the day. And the topic of the day is how brands are donning an all-new avatar today. We are happy to have you here, Giri. Welcome to brand-comm Connect.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
So let me now welcome our first panelist, Mr. Sudhakar Rao, who is the Director of Branding ICFI Group. Mr. Sudhakar Rao is a brand strategist, a startup mentor, and a social media advisor, all donned into one. In a career spanning over 20 years, Sudhakar Rao has donned multiple hats. He has been into branding, marketing, corporate relations, international operations, etc. In the city of pearls, say EdTech, and Sudhakar Rao is among the first name that comes to the minds of many an organizer of seminars that touches upon EdTech today. He not only works with an education institution, but he is also continuously educating himself, seeking to upgrade his skills, perhaps setting an example for youngsters today. While he has studied mechanical engineering, he came to do his post-graduation in management at IIM Bangalore, which is a few kilometers from where I reside. He recently completed a specialized program on design thinking from MIT Sloan School of Management. Sudhakar Rao heads branding for the entire group that includes 11 ICFA universities, 9 B schools, 7 tech schools, and 7 law schools, and a huge distance learning program. That's Mr. Sudhakar Rao for you, ladies and gentlemen, and he will give an insight from a consultant and an advisor's perspective. We are privileged to have you here, Mr. Rao. Welcome to brand-comm Connect.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here.
So, a company that was on cloud nine, which found itself in troubled waters as soon as a lockdown was announced. This company did not waste too much time in revamping their business model as soon as they sensed trouble. This company is called Indian Money. The versatility and the agility in which it changed its business model is all because of a young founder, Mr. C.S. Sudhir. Sudhir founded Indian Money when he was just 22, when most of us are out of college and confused about our career choices. He turned against the tide and grew this company to a phenomenal height in these 10 years. Friends, he still looks 22 for us. Friends, Indian Money, a financial advisory company, it came into existence in 2008. That's an interesting story. When Sudhir happened to come across an auto driver who lost his life savings after being misled by an insurance agent. That's when he felt the need for a financial literacy service, and he started Indian Money. The company has provided financial literacy to over millions of people in the last 10 years, and he has also written a book called Love Beyond Death to educate his target audience. His relentless passion has made him a sensation on YouTube to provide financial literacy. Sudhir will tell all the entrepreneurs and the marketeers in this audience on how he changed the entire business model of his company. We welcome you, Sudhir.
Thank you so much. My pleasure. Thanks for the invitation.
So our next speaker is Mr. Rajesh Bernard, founder and CEO of SmarterBiz. We all have heard of some being a jack of all trades, but Rajesh is actually the master of many, if not all. Be it sales, data security, technology, strategy, and setting up complete new businesses that give a different dimension to the industry. Rajesh has done it all. With over 20 years of experience, Rajesh started SmarterBiz. The company's business model is as smart as the name of the company itself, as it is remote. It's a remote contact center that is scalable, flexible, and mobile first. It's an interesting business model. As you all would have heard, these messages when you call your customer care service, where the system on the other side talks about, due to COVID issues and safety of their colleagues, they are all working remotely. And due to this, you will have to face a longer waiting time. And after some time, the call just gets disconnected. The main reason behind that is that the contact centers don't have employees working in their offices because of lockdown in various parts of the country. And these businesses were also never designed for remote working. Here is SmarterBiz that has managed to bring in a service like customer experience into the modern era by bringing in technology and the gig workforce together to create a successful business model. I welcome him and look forward to his incredible insights that would help our audience today. Over to you, Giri.
Yeah, thank you, Praveen, for an excellent introduction about the panelists. We have a very eclectic group of panel and a very, very interesting topic, far more relevant than what it was earlier. The topic, as all of us know, is how the new world will be, how the normal will be post COVID or during COVID? How will businesses pan out? And we are already seeing a lot of new trends out here. How the healthcare industry is really coming up. How the food industry is coming up, and uh, what are the how the other sectors are going to be affected. For example, tourism. It could be travel, and if you're talking about travel, look at the Zoom call right now. Do we really need to travel to hold those closed door meetings? We don't have to. So what will happen to the airline industry, which actually has a lot of its sales coming from the corporate sector? So this is just one example. What I will do now is that I'll ask each of the panelists to speak for say 2-3 minutes, and then we'll have a Q and A, and then we'll take 2-3 rounds on that, and then I'm sure we'll get some questions from the participants as well. I would start off with Mr. Sudhakar Rao, his experiences and his forecast. How does he look at a scenario post COVID-19? Mr. Sudhakar Rao.
Thank you very much, Giri. If I can take the liberty of calling you by first name.
Sure. Please go ahead.
Uh, I would like to focus first on education and then probably comment on other sectors. In education, what has happened is the hit has been more visible compared to others. Even other sectors also it is visible, but education, your malls, cinema theaters are the ones who are going to be opened very, very last. But I have a take on this that education institutions will be the first ones to recover, even though they are the last ones to open. Having said that, in order to decode how this pandemic has hit us and how hard it has been, I need to talk about the perspective of the things that emerged in the last few months, especially in education. In education, everybody switched to online. And in online, there have been three important phases. The phase one has been a phase of confusion, did not know what was happening, and they took some time to settle down. And by the time they understood what it was, they thought they have to take action. So that itself was a phase one. I know different institutions and different schools and colleges are at different phases always, but this important assimilation of fact has been a phase in itself because pandemics or crises do not come with any advance notice. The second phase from there has been a phase of infrastructure building the infrastructure for your online education. That is to understand what kind of tools that you have to deploy in terms of Zoom, in terms of WhatsApp, in terms of Google Meet, so on and so forth. So they somehow latched on to a particular tool and they continued the business of engaging with the student and tried to finish their syllabus, whatever they were supposed to as per their plan. And the phase three, which is still going on probably, or for some it has not begun, is a phase where a differentiation has to happen. As an institution, as a school, as a college, even originally otherwise, you are meant for some differentiated approach. Now, during this online interactivity, how do you bring about this differentiation? The institutional philosophy, everything has to be reflected in the way that you speak, in the way that you teach, in the way that you learn. Now, among all these three phases, there has been a parallelly three-phase emerging adoption of technology. We juxtapose this with the three phases of the technology that people have adopted very quickly. The first one was tools, as I mentioned, the Zoom, WhatsApp, and whatnot. Then the second one has been the white label learning management systems that are available in the market. So that's again a quick fix, but then people have adopted that and done that. A tool is a tool. It's like you are staying in a rented place and you're trying to operate from there, and you are seen as a tool still. So some of them have gone into what is something which is a semblance of some kind of system that's called a white label learning management system. From there, the third and the maturity phase has been own customized learning management system. Now, own learning management system is something which you cannot build overnight. But if one has started building it over the last 100 days, one would have reached at a meaningful stage and then one would continue. Now, we juxtapose these three things. Maturity level is differentiation, and maturity level in the technology adoption is the learning management system. Now, why do we do all these things? Because the future is going to be blended, it's going to be hybrid. It is going to be both online and offline. The necessary learning that you will have will still be online, and there are certain other things that we have to learn and relegate to the face-to-face interactivity when the schools and colleges open. So since the real world is out there for us to still embrace with, hybrid world is something which we have to prepare with. So we need to actually build our own learning management system as an institution, as a college and school. I think that's been the perspective that I looked at in all these days. Now, briefly, how it is going to emerge? The game is going to be very, very fierce. It's going to be interesting, quite passionately driven by some of the education institutions. But then, those who have been into this game half-heartedly, those who have inherited some grandfather's properties and wealth, they will vanish. Not in terms of wealth that they will vanish, but they will vanish from the space because that they are not able to actually bring in that kind of passion to fight out and stay alive. Now, here it is not the fittest who will survive, but it is the smartest who will survive. The smartest will always have the wherewithal to navigate through these difficult times. And there are many measures which I will speak in the second round, how institutions and colleges can actually keep their head high and above these troubled waters and still do a very good job at what they are doing.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Sudhakar Rao. Very interesting points that you have made. What goes to show is that the human spirit evolves all the time. It overcomes some of the most difficult phases in one's life. Going forward, I would like to ask Mr. Sudhir, how does he see with contactless? I can actually see that very few visits are made to the ATM these days, and everything is done over the fintech apps. In a scenario like this, fortunately for us, we had already adapted to a very large extent as far as our fintech apps are concerned, Paytm and stuff like that. And it's become much easier for us now. So compared with a few other countries, I think we have had a far better head start than the others. And I can see that your company actually is into investor education, is into education of common people like us. What are the kind of trends that you see from the ground? Are there anything that is emerging which was not there earlier? And how does one define this and how does one take it forward?
All right. Thanks for the invitation, first of all, and thanks for the kind introduction, Praveen. And to answer Giri's question, so if you look at the financial services space, right, in the last 10 years, we have witnessed robust, transformation here. Many things have changed, as you rightly said. I think even before the lockdown, we literally stopped going to ATMs, right? So things had changed in the past as well. But then what had happened is, when the lockdown was announced, when this COVID spread started increasing, people had to literally find that, way out to stay connected and engaged with the customers. Like it was not that, unlike traveling, hospitality, where the service, never people never said, I don't need your service. In traveling or hospitality, people said, hey, I don't need your service. But in financial services, people said, I need your service. You tell me, how can you deliver it now? So that was the challenge, right? So we didn't lose any opportunity. It was, in fact, someone like Indian Money, for us to educate people, in fact, they needed us more. That's how we were able to run our operations even during the lockdown without really closing our office. We were able to run it because people needed more education that time because they were clueless whether to opt for a moratorium or not, whether to continue paying my insurance premium or not, whether my health insurance covers corona or not. So there were so many questions in their mind. So we had to literally answer all that, right? So the change in trend, number one, see, we do five things with money, right? we earn money, we save, we spend, we invest, we borrow. So all these five are impacted because of COVID-19. Number one, with reference to earning money, now people are literally, there are, I think the unemployment rate hit all-time high. Many people lost jobs. Now people are still figuring out what to do. Many people have got a pay cut, and some people have also found new opportunities to, build their career. And the second part, saving money. All those people who used to say, "Hey, why should we save money? Today is today. Let's enjoy today." Those people have now got to realize, okay, something like this will hit us so hard that if we don't have enough money, we have to beg outside, right? They've realized now.
Yeah.
Number three, with reference to spending money, they've got to realize we can live with so less money also now, right? All those people who used to spend, they used to work for 5 days and spend in the weekend. But today, because there are no weekends, no outing, no cinemas, you got to save so much, and you realize that you can live with so little money, right? The spending has gone down. Number four, on the investing front, now they have realized investing all my money in one bucket, I mean, one kind of asset is not a good idea. I mean, stock market literally tanked, and then property, there is no liquidity. So you have seen gold going up, so aggressively. So there are other realizations with reference to investing. People have now, even though the FD rates have gone down significantly, people are willing to keep their money in fixed deposits. Apart from that, people have realized that debt mutual funds are not safe. This was not the idea. Many people were thinking that, okay, debt mutual funds are safe, but now they have realized after this Franklin Templeton issue and things like that. And with reference to borrowing money, there was so much of confusion. See, first of all, they were thinking moratorium means, oh, I know interest will not grow. But now they have realized, okay, moratorium is just a postponement of payment. And even during that, you get to, your interest gets accumulated and all that they've realized. Plus, on the borrowing front, all those people who had limited EMI commitment or no EMI commitment, they have survived. They're happy. Those who lost their income and had heavy EMI commitment, they're literally struggling. And because of that, there is so much of people are now trying to sell their house, sell their car because they're not able to pay back their EMIs, right? So now I think the bad debt is going to go up, right? Now because now banks are even thinking about increasing the moratorium by another 3 months. That's a very dangerous move. It should not happen because if you stop paying the EMI for 6 months, then suddenly when you have to pay back, people might not have that kind of income now. It's going to be a challenge. So the trends are, one way it is very encouraging because people are now realizing the importance of insurance, things like that. Other side, it is also very disappointing. It's very worrying because we don't know what may happen to the banking space now.
Which is true. Sudhir, a very interesting points, but it's also a very interesting paradox that you touched upon. We are saving more, but our salaries are reduced, right? At the same time, our savings rate in banks has reduced, but at the same time, interest rates on housing loans have reduced too, right? Yeah. Very interesting paradox. We'll take this later. And now I would like to ask Mr. Rajesh about his views on how businesses will change. Are they already changing? Are you seeing new trends out there? And your vision for the future. How do you look, say, a year from now? And in addition to that, which other sectors do you think that will sort of accelerate much better than the others? Over to you, Mr. Rajesh.
Thank you, Giri. If I can call you by your first name.
Yeah, please go ahead.
It's an honor and pleasure to talk to you. It's a great pleasure to have Mr. Sudhakar Rao and Mr. Sudhir. Nice to have you as a panel, and thank you, Praveen, for that nice introduction. We are in the customer experience industry, which is one of the biggest in the world. And India is on the forefront of it. I think most of the world's back offices are run from countries like India and Philippines. Pre-COVID, this particular industry, which is the backbone of you learning your customers' feedbacks, what your customers are going through is the only channel is through this customer experience touch points. 2 years, about 1.5 years from back, great companies started opening up remote workspace because this was a cost center, and to get a customer is rather to retain a customer is 1/10 the cost of getting a new customer, and still it was a cost center. So some of the greatest companies on this planet were already doing remote working and distributed remote working options, and it was very specific, industry specific in the customer experience, but also started going in the IT and in the engineering sectors as well. But when the COVID hit, the larger group of these companies, where they employ in India itself, they employ more than 1 million people, suddenly found out themselves they don't have the tech, nor they don't have the expertise to run such business operations. And I know certain companies were shipping 2,000 computers along with UPS, along with shipping internet Wi-Fi dongles to their employees overnight at home, because they were not ready for this paradigm. And then what happened was, these were full-time employees, so they knew that they will get their salaries. So they also were not having an infrastructure to manage a working environment inside their living spaces. So they used to get productivity. The companies that started to and venture very aggressively in this space started finding that productivity was becoming 20-25%. And to make the matter worse, most of these people left the cities and went out. So the industry got a shock in this in the initial events of this COVID. But eventually the industry started responding, and today the productivity of 25 to 30% in this space has gone up to about 50 to 55%. But it's still a huge challenge. You can have a UPS at home, but it will stay only for 4 hours. What about the electricity if it goes after 4 hours? The work gets stopped. You can't have multiple UPS as well, right? So there are some fine challenges there. And secondly, we have seen that the gig workforce has responded very, very well, because they want to work. And the gig workforce is structured in a way that you get paid when you work. You drive a passenger for a kilometer, you get paid then. You deliver a particular package to a house, you get paid then. It is pay per work, as opposed to the normal FTE, which is paid irrespective of work. So the gig workforce has really caught on to this, and companies are seeing that there are few trends that we are seeing in the current COVID, that's almost been 2 to 3 months now, is that collaboration has become a very key word. Companies are embracing full-time employees and gig employees together to work, so that they can fill productivity. They have an elasticity on the outcomes, and a very, very cautious embracement of technology. You cannot get away from it now. You have to be technically at least literate on certain basic aspects to earn a living. So these are the trends that is happening in the current COVID. We believe that COVID will have its impact for the next 8 to 12 months. And in that, the industries that are going to survive in this space are e-commerce industries, telco, computing, and like Mr. Sudhir said, financial services, and in Mr. Sudhakar's Rao, education. And I think there, I personally feel printer will be a big thing, because parents will try to avoid exposing their kids to the screen any which way. But these are the industries that we see a big growth that is happening. And these are the industries are surviving and are able to deliver it irrespective of the COVID scenarios. Post this, there are other companies that will take an immediate V-shape are the logistics, because you will first get onto a Uber or a Ola to commute. The last mile, the last mile connectivity companies that give free share rides. So these are the industries that we see will have an immediate V-shape. This is the outlook that we see and what we are hearing from our customers that we talk to.
Thank you, Mr. Rajesh. One interesting thing that has happened, or rather the development that has happened today, as far as gig workers are concerned, is that the Karnataka state government has come up with a definite policy for gig workers, which is quite unique for any state government. You know, I mean, this is not there at all earlier. Nobody ever thought that there will be a separate policy for gig workers. So I'll go back to Mr. Sudhakar Rao and ask him about the edutech companies. Look at Vedantu, look at Byju's. Are they going to have a big run? How are they going to transform themselves? If you look at Byju's valuation, it's only rising. It is getting fresh funding compared with other other sectorial kind of companies. How will educational institutions, will they morph into something like that? Will most of the courses be online? Will there be new challenges? While I ask this question to Mr. Sudhakar Rao, I want the other two panelists also to join me and discuss this issue, and then we go to the other panelists, their views, just as Mr. Rajesh had a word or two, his views about the education sector.
Yes, the ones which are immediately doing well or going to do well are the edutech and biotech, or in a manner that everyone understands. It's education and healthcare. There are a whole lot of other industries and sectors that are also going to do well. But coming back to edutech, yes, these companies which can give very good content and engage the students for their learning aspect. The learning as a module, knowledge as a module, these are two different things. If you restrict your knowledge seeking to asynchronous learning as available in videos, which are either video on demand, or some of the service providers like Byju's and Khan Academy, Moodle, MOOCs, everywhere. It's available right from K-12 to PG and the research level. It's available for all of you. But I think one small and important critical success factor here would be, as I gave the format of how the system is going to emerge in the days to come. Some of the institutions and faculty members will have to sit down and work with these education companies and say that these are the videos and these are the lessons that are for, say, class 6, class 7, class 8. We need to map the resources vis-a-vis what is prescribed by the regulatory bodies. See, unless and until it is put into that bottle, it doesn't become the liquid of desire. No, there's a way to actually make sense of these both. Beautiful content is available, but we need to navigate that in terms of making use of it by various schools. It's a fact that during lockdown, during the last 100 days, for example, the subscription of Vedantu or Byju's has gone up many times.
Yeah.
And the revenues have actually tripled, although a large part of them have been free subscribers. But then that's how you actually convince the parents, you actually convince the students, and then you hook on to what is called learning. Now, in a market like, say, K-12 to PG, you have roughly about 37 crore students studying something, somewhere, sometime, all the time. That's a huge market. And I'm sure you would agree with me, it is somewhere around 7.5 lakh crores of market size. That's what is the Indian education system. Yeah. Large number of people, large number of, huge value that we have in this. So we need to be very careful in navigating how do we repackage the existing content and make sense of it in terms of the ongoing model of, you pass one class, you go to the next class, standard 6 to standard 7, so on and so forth. I don't want to disturb that, because you need to have some kind of gradual passing systems. The other thing is, when you have so much of asynchronous learning, and when the schools and colleges eventually open up in, say, September, for example, or December, for example, you will still have a large part of this knowledge seeking going on to online. And schools and colleges will definitely make do for what is called peer learning, learning to deal with new people, learning to deal with your friends, camaraderie, sports, debating. All these things will continue to happen at different phases of education. But then the schools are required to be open, campuses are required to be open. Online learning is required. All the concept clearance, all the dramatization that you require, all that can be relegated to online. But navigating through different viewpoints, handling people, learning from peers, all these things can stay with us in the school premises, in the college premises, as may be the case. In my view, those are the winners, the early winners who are able to figure out this thing very fast. We need to actually get this thing very, very right. At a maturity level of differentiating yourself by getting the best of the technology and keep it aside. And then still portray and communicate the values that you stand for. See, there is nothing like post-COVID. I mean, I don't want to use that word as post-COVID. We say COVID era. Now, during the lockdown, there was a test of leadership for us. It's not just education, but everywhere. The test of leadership is that as a parent, you had to display your leadership. As head of the organization, you had to display your leadership. At an administrative level, at the state, city, and the country level, at the political level, you had to display leadership. The leadership was questioned all the while during this pandemic. That was very, very important takeaway. For example, you stayed at home, the way you dealt with the domestic staff or the help that you have at home, in terms of did you pay the salaries to them? Did you shout at them? Did you take care of them? Did you make an inquiry as to in that mohalla that they're staying, is everything okay? Did you, as a human being, measure up in the eyes of your children? The younger generation is always watching you.
Yeah.
My students who are spread across the country in large numbers, they are looking at me through my Facebook, social media, and other handles as to what this institution is doing in crisis. Are they trying to reach out to me? If they're reaching out to me, are they trying to make it a saturation campaign? If it is a saturation campaign, are there objectives which are protected always like before? I think they want to know whether the care factor in you is displayed sufficiently or not, and they're going to pick it up from us. In 1920, that is 100 years back, when the Spanish flu was there, none of us were aware of how our seniors handled it. So forget about it. But today, there is a generation around us which is trying to look at us and see how we are wrapping our head around this emerging pandemic. At all levels, we are questioning.
Very interesting. Yeah.
One simple example I'll give you.
Yeah.
An institution, for example, I am running a school. Now you have, say, 1,000 students. There were no regular classes happening. Only online classes are going on. You had all the context of these children and their parents. If the school really cared, they could have contacted all the parents and inquired about them, their health, whether they're doing well or not. They are staying in different localities. Theoretically speaking, they would have stayed in a 5-kilometer, 10-kilometer radius in a small town,
right? Yeah,
or a small city. Now it is very easy when you break this into sections and classes. You can have different WhatsApp groups, and then you can reach out to the parents and say that I want to find out whether so and so child is fine and the entire family is okay or not, and then map it back into a newsletter and say that all our children and their families are fine. They are doing really well. We are very happy to report that. That newsletter should go to the parents during the lockdown period. If it has gone, then they will think that you are the school which is caring for all of us and giving the information, and it is safer for me to return to school.
Yeah.
When actually the government opens up in September, gives the permission for you to open up, it's a great opportunity. If people have missed out, it's a great loss. So always the leadership was at its test, and some of us have passed and some of us have failed.
Yeah, understand. Yeah. Mr. Sudhir, taking off from there, what are the, as is, earlier talking about how savings is playing a major role, but at the same time, we are not able to save much because our salaries are down and we are now talking of gig workers and issues like that. And then there is financial education. How will educational institutions help you out? Do you think there will be a change in the way we save? Do you think the kind of financial instruments that we are going to use now, will the fintech companies, will banks, will lenders, will they need to rethink on how they are going to lend? Will there be any innovation in financial instruments? Can you throw some light on that?
Obviously, in fact, if you have noticed in the recent past, I mean, of course, lending has slowed down in the last 3 months or so since the lockdown, but there is a lot of innovation happening in this space from the last 3 4 years. Even things like neo banking, or what we call as open banking, even that has started in India, right? So we have actually revolutionized many things in India, especially today. If you see, even if you want to buy tender coconut on the street, this guy will have a phone pay or a Google Pay or a Paytm, right? So there is so much of innovation happening in the fintech space. But then, if I have to be specific on the savings part, the challenge with savings in India is, see, the millennials, right, the age between 20 to 30, they are not willing to save as much as the elders save. I mean, the earlier generation, they used to save. In fact, we used to see our parents, even if they had little income, they used to save a small chunk. But today we have kind of, we are living on credit card. We live from salary to salary, paycheck to paycheck. That is what is happening. I think the millennials have to change the way they do. And that's predominantly because there are too many attractions we had. But I think this COVID-19 has taught us. And now there is an opportunity for many fintech companies to design new products which can be hybrid saving products, which should be a combination of equity plus debt, instead of just saying, hey, it's a debt only product or a equity only product. But there should be some kind of intelligence to say, hey, the system will do it. Like some startups in this space, the mutual funds, they did it, but then they were again predominantly pushing people to equity only model. But then things will change. I think hybrid savings products will come in. On the other side, on the lending front, see, what happened in the last 7 8 years or so, there were so many lending startups started, and they all were raising money. They were lending in different ways. They were lending from their books. Some were taking a spread. They were actually making the banks to lend, or NBFCs to lend, but they were taking the spread. So, but then all these people have learned a lesson hard way today, that ultimately, irrespective of how much you lend or whom you lend, he will not pay you back until he has an income. Now, what has happened? They were lending to people, like for example, the subprime crisis which happened in 2008 is basically going to repeat now. So what happened? All those subprime customers, I mean, like, who didn't have a regular source of income, who didn't have a past credit history, the big banks were not lending them. Fintech guys came and said, we will lend them.
Yeah.
But now they're finding it difficult to collect it back. And that's how you would have seen these payday loans and all were lending at about 3.5%, 4% monthly interest.
Right.
And that's literally an extortion. But then these guys also have that kind of NPA rates. So any innovation which is not backed by solid fundamentals may not sustain in the lending space, is what I consider. Yeah.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Mr. Rajesh, 10 or 12 years ago, they used to talk about how an average American held at least 2 3 jobs, right? As far as Indians are concerned, that's not possible because you're wedded to one company, you have to sign a whole lot of documents. But you talked about gig workers. Will, over a period of time, a whole lot of population turn into gig workers? They hold one job, they are into something else, they hold different kinds of jobs. How do you look at the scenario emerging out?
See, the 2008 financial crisis coined or gave birth to the word called the gig workers, because they were highly talented people and they wanted to work. If you look at the millennials, if you look at the Gen Z, 35 to 40% of that workforce, they are not willing to work. 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 They are wants to be in a flexi or a gig model.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to have careers, they want to have jobs. There's a very fundamental difference in how you name that. They don't want to have careers, they want to have jobs. So this will drive the entire gig multiple jobs across the globe. India is catching up very, very fast on this. And you will see the millennials are going to have multiple skills. They're going to, this episode of COVID has taught even children that you have to self-learn. There is not going to be a student-teacher relationship, at least in this year. And so all those factors are enabling for the gig workforce to come and become as a very prominent workforce in the market.
Okay, very interesting stuff. Let me get back to Mr. Sudhakar Rao again and ask him about how the other, whatever the, for example, the fintech industry, financial education, Mr. Rajesh, what is he talking about? Will there be any kind of cross learning that will take place among whole lot of sectors and how each one of them will benefit? I would want views from the other two panelists as well, but I do hope you keep it short because we are running out of time and we need to have another 10 minutes of Q&A, and then I'm going to have this rapid fire just to make this whole thing interesting.
Yes, I'll keep it brief. Cross learning is a must, otherwise, we are going to be very, very costly in terms of our decisions that are not taken.
Yeah.
See, for example, as the pandemic hit us, we thought that whoever is tested positive on COVID-19 is supposed to actually go to hospital.
Yeah, yeah.
The leadership among the medical fraternity did not emerge very strongly and vociferously to tell the administration or the government that we do not have to go to hospital. That is where we erred. And then we put an unreasonably high burden on the hospital infrastructure. And when it was needed more for those who are short on breath and needing respiratory support and in terms of ventilator and all, at that time we raised our hands. I think cross learning in terms of management and leadership for doctors and medical fraternity is extremely important. I can extrapolate to other sectors as well, but since it is most immediate and quite evident for us, I took this example. Cross learning is always must, sectorally, industry wise, and at the same time, as I said earlier, leadership is at a test now. The way you have reduced your non-people cost and try to protect your people, I think that is the real leader and that's the real winner.
All right. Your thoughts, Mr. Sudhir? Will a lot more cross learning take place? Will each other collaborate? Because today we have suddenly realized we not only have to exist, we have to see the others also exist, which was not there earlier, right? So how do you look at it?
No, I think the only way to help each other now is sharing opportunities and sharing knowledge, right? So now I think, as you were rightly mentioning about these tech companies who are now coming up with innovation to kind of address the problem, created by COVID-19, right? So now if you look at this, there's an intelligent development, right? I mean, a very interesting development here. What is happening? We were thinking that tech companies are basically going to supplement the education system.
Which is
But
true.
now they
Yeah,
are
yeah, till
becoming a
recently.
substitute, right? They're becoming a substitute, in terms of at least the delivery. But
Yeah.
I feel it should be a hybrid model, like the way Sudhakar Rao said, right? It should be a hybrid model wherein
Yeah.
both should coexist, wherein the colleges should actually encourage peer-to-peer learning and all that. Institutions, campuses should be there to do that.
Yeah.
And the delivery can be even, I mean, like all these tech companies who have got great content can become the back end for the colleges, institutions to deliver the same content. And the engagement and the interactions can be managed by institutions who are anyway well versed with that.
Yeah, interesting. Mr. Rajesh, you have worked with Indian companies, Israeli companies, the defense ecosystem. How is it all going to pan out now? How do you think? Now, I was just talking about sectors. Now I'm going to talk about countries. How will countries each help each other out? Because now they realize that all of them have to exist in the same plane, in the same ecosystem.
Yes. So in terms of from a global perspective, I think the norm is going to be cross learning, self learning, learning, unlearning, relearning, skilling, unskilling, and reskilling. These are the pivots in which everybody, every country is going to start going and going to their drawing boards and start doing it at country level, even at family level. That's the spectrum that this will apply to everybody. The
Mm-hmm.
second aspect is that uh, uh, since it becomes a remote workspace in the global workforce, you will start seeing that mobility or mobility challenged workforce who did not enter the workforce will start entering this workforce, and predominantly that will be women. So by the end of October, November, just on our platform, we will have about 8 to 9,000. Most of them are women who will be able to work remotely and get a living. So globally, you will also see the distribution of wealth and the workforce of the gender will start, the gap will start reducing. Companies will start collaborating much more closely now, especially in the vaccine. And today, if you had seen, India will still lead the way for vaccine production because we have the lowest production cost of vaccine itself. That's one of the key examples that we emerged. We became exporting billions of dollars worth of PPE now. So countries will start leveraging, and the distribution of manufacturing workforce will move much more from China already.
Okay, interesting. So before I take those questions, I'll have this rapid fire. I hope that will be very interesting. I'll again start off with Mr. Sudhakar Rao. Uh, one lesson that, or one advice that you would want to give it to Byju's.
Aligned with the institutional framework, don't be rigid. There's a lot of money, tons of money that you can make.
All right. The second question, in your entire, you have read books and you have been with IM. Who do you think is a real winner in these times?
You want me to give the name or you want me to give the character?
I would want a personality type. Who will survive this pandemic as far as the education system and the way learnings and from your industry?
From my industry or from any other industry, single most unassailable factor in leadership is empathy. Those who have managed to display empathy through a variety of actions will be the winner. And I admire quite a bit what Elon Musk is doing.
Oh, okay, fantastic. Any learning or anything that has benefited you most as of now?
Yes, I think more than ever before, we have realized that minimalism is is going to help us in the long run. For example, with pandemic and with lockdown,
Okay,
the real estate has not become that premium a factor. And similarly, when we apply it to others also, the value that you bring to the table is more important than the space that you show there. So therefore, clubbing both, I would say that leadership is about creating real estate on your hearts and minds rather than on the ground.
all right. Thank you, Mr. Sudhakar Rao. Mr. Sudhir, what would you like to tell Paytm? What is one thing that you want to talk to Paytm? How are they doing? What exactly your thoughts on that?
I think innovation adoption is great, but sustainability is very important because they're like poster boys of Indian startup ecosystem. So we want them to succeed. So they need to focus on their sustainability as well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And anything that you have learned from the age of 22 till now, which has now come in very handy as of now.
Yeah, absolutely. Learning, I think, unless until you are up to date, you will not be able to change or tune yourself with the changing times, right? I
Yeah.
think the great thing I have done in my last 12 years of entrepreneurial journey is learning. That has really helped me to tune myself to the current time.
All right. Praveen was introducing you, and he talked about how auto rickshaw driver actually made you end up launching this. You know, so there are several examples like that. Uh, do you in any manner help them out now? How what kind of education are they now part of your ecosystem?
Absolutely. In fact, what we did is right after the lockdown, I
Mm-hmm.
started going live on YouTube daily twice, morning 8, night 8. And I was taking all their questions. Daily, I was spending 2 hours on YouTube and Facebook, simultaneously live. Every day, I was reaching out to about 200,000 people through
Okay.
my Facebook and YouTube live programs.
Okay. Any role model that you had pre-pandemic and now this pandemic, has it changed?
Sorry, I missed your question.
The role model.
For me,
Any role model which you had pre-pandemic, do they continue to be the role models now?
yeah, I mean, it has not changed, I think, because my role model is Jeff Bezos, and
Okay.
he remains my role model. And his business has done fantastic during the
Yes.
pandemic. Yeah.
Yeah, which is true. Which is true. Which is true. Mr. Rajesh, you keep having interactions with Israeli companies. Anything to take a leaf out of that book, which is going to be very relevant now?
Uh, I think the Israelis are very great tacticians. They are very great tacticians, and they are very great in details.
Mm-hmm.
And they give out they make sure that they go to the detail, and they give their entire life for that. I think if we imbibe those two, and they have a great sense of pride for their own language. Everything is in Hebrew. I think we should learn that, and we should use our mother tongue, our national language, and we should be able to be as detailed and obsessed about it, like how the Israelis, and be as tactician as they are.
Which country do you think will come out with the first vaccine?
I'm betting India.
Oh, that's interesting. That's very good. I mean, you also advise a lot of startups. What is the one thing that you want to tell them now which will sustain their operations?
I think that you not take decisions hastily.
Mm-hmm.
Money is just a point in life.
Mm-hmm.
Time is a bigger healer.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure that your costs are down,
Okay.
but do not take hasty decisions.
All right.
Everybody is in it. And when it comes out, the V shape will be much, much acuter. I hope it's a 10 degrees between the two lines.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Let me take the questions now, and let us see whom it is relevant for. This is from Mr. Divakar Singh. He wants to know how far our industry leaders and innovation thought leaders focused on must have, could have model to handle crisis. We see many nice efforts which have been prioritized rather than return to normalcy situations. Who would like to take this question?
Yeah, I'll try to make an attempt there.
Mm-hmm.
I think prioritization is extremely important when the resource crunch is hitting you.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it is a fintech industry or hospitality or education or something else. But the priority, if it is to protect people and preserve talent, I
Mm-hmm.
think that's the right prioritization over protecting your physical infrastructure and losing your softer intellectual capital. I think that's where the leadership will come. So the must have, should have, could have is a necessary format in which people will have to think through. But more than that, I think it is the people sense, it is the empathy that will definitely hold you in high esteem, and in the long run, that is going to actually make you a winner.
Okay, I hope Mr. Divakar Singh is satisfied with his question. He has another one about how our economy runs with leave for today resources until business normalcy established, how we can expect economic revival. Anybody would like to take that,
Yeah.
Mr.
I
Sudhir?
think, yeah. I think the economic recovery is dependent largely on three things.
Mm-hmm.
One, on the efficiency. I think, see, all these days what was happening at India is we were always thinking that, okay, hey, China is cheap. But we never thought why China is cheap, right? Today,
Yeah, yeah,
look at it, Indian average salary is about 2 lakh. In
yeah,
China, average salary is about 9 lakh. But we still see Chinese products in India because of the fact, because it is cheap.
yeah,
And if you look at why it is cheap, it is because of the efficiency. In
yeah,
India, we always comment on what is not there, but we don't really think about what we should do.
yeah, yeah.
Unless until we
All
become
the more reason we should do that.
it's
Yeah,
not going to change, right? The
yeah,
second thing on is about education. I think unless until the reform in the education sector happens, the reform, whatever economic revival will happen is only going to be temporary, unless until we make the permanent change, right? So the skill India or all the changes what government is bringing in, unless until there is a fundamental shift in the education system, because that's not really happening today, which is really long pending. Probably we should think about it now. And the third thing is on the enterprises and industries. Today, the enterprises and industries are not being supported by the government with a very good reforms and the policies. Today,
hmm,
if you look at it, the labor law is one-sided. Labor law is completely one-sided.
right,
And
right.
second, on the infrastructure side also, beyond cities like Bangalore, you don't really have the required infrastructure. If you
Mm.
go to smaller towns, it is very difficult. Even electricity is a challenge because we are setting up call centers in smaller towns. We are finding it so difficult. They
Yeah,
spend a lot of their money on running generators, right?
yeah.
It is very important to get the required infrastructure and support the industries. That's when I think we will be able to transform the economy.
Okay, all right. The other one is from an anonymous attendee. I heard that companies are going through a change in business model. What made you think of changing the business model? How did you change it, and how did it show signs of recovery? I assume he's talking about what's going to happen post pandemic, but as I was talking about it earlier, there are no templates any longer. We have to invent our own templates. And Mr. Rajesh, would you like to take that question?
Uh, I think Sudhir has. I think Sudhir has a live example for that, so I will ask him to take that question.
Yeah. No,
If
I
you
think
if you're okay with Giri.
it
Yeah,
is.
yeah. Please go ahead. Anyway.
It's not about I think changing the business model. It's about asking yourself, does your service or product make sense even today? Does it remain relevant today? If it is relevant, then you need to ask the next question. Then does the channel through which you are delivering your product or service, should it change? Like
All
in our case, my
right.
service remained relevant even today. It is just that the delivery mechanism had to change, so we changed it quickly. In some cases, the product itself became irrelevant because of the pandemic. So there they had to reinvent the product. So it is
Okay.
not just changing the business model. I mean, we need to be dynamic, otherwise we will not exist. Yeah.
Yeah, I
There
would
is,
like to add to that. I
yeah.
think it's not about looking for changing business models as much as it is about changing the mindsets to handle the businesses per se.
You're right. You're right. Yeah.
For example, if you can take your products and services into the living room by adopting technology, by accessing the customer, by winning the customer and retaining the customer, and the same product and service will still be valid. If you're very rigid, take for example a restaurant, very good brand of restaurant. If it is not changing its approach, I'll give you an example from Hyderabad. There's a brand called Pista House. It serves very good non-vegetarian food, Mughlai dishes, and so on and so forth. In the pandemic, I have noticed that they brought the kitchen outside, in the sense the kitchen which is at the back end has actually become the front end.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there is a sanitization tunnel. Next to sanitization tunnel is the kitchen which is transparent and open. And opposite to the kitchen is the counter. You pay there or you look at this kitchen and pay there and take the food. You don't have to actually go inside. We are not even talking about the most easily understood factor of dine in, sit in, have food, not all those things. They are still there. But the biggest factor of victory is to come forward, come outside and tell the customer that, hey, look at me, I am maintaining this hygiene. Your food is the safest. You are most important. Look at me, I'm demonstrating confidence to you, and only then you buy the counter which is opposite to you. You don't have to go inside and feel sad and sorry about how many people have sat on the sofa, has it been sanitized? With all kinds of doubts, you will not digest your food properly. So that's one example. I'm very sorry to give this example. Afternoon, I came to know that Koshi's in Bangalore is closed. We have a lot of memories.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
true. This is
not,
true.
I'm not saying they have not changed business model or so, but in the context of the things that I'm saying and the example I have given about,
Very, very iconic institution, actually.
it's an iconic institution. I
Yeah,
mean, most of us are from Bangalore, I think. This is the
that's true, that's true.
the other
I
thing that
actually get calls saying that how a certain five-star hotel is now giving you very exquisite cuisine through Swiggy's. It was just not earlier. You had to visit that hotel to taste all that. So they are not only donning new kind of culture, but they are reinventing themselves. One last question I have, and which is actually the most interesting: which industries will need to relook at their business models? And along with that, I will take the other one. Yeah, I'll leave the other two later, but I would like to know which industries will need to take a relook at their business models. Any of you, Mr. Sudhir, Praveen,
I think,
Rajesh?
see, it's not about relooking at the business model. It's all about, I think especially these industries like aviation, hospitality, who are very, severely affected. Others, they just have to look at their execution plan. How can they
That's what
make,
Mr. Sudhakar was talking about.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. Otherwise, business model wise, I don't think not much has to be changed.
All right.
one more takeaway that I can give to, say, hospitality, travel, leisure industries, that earlier some of us were traveling to various destinations and then combining it with pleasure. Now you will not have it because all these lavishly spent conferences, meeting global leaders is just not required physically. In case you have to have a mission-oriented meetings with a crack team, intercontinental as well, then you can go and meet. But otherwise, thousands of people converging into an international conference, we have now realized that it's just not required. We can still do it online. But the leisure industry, travel industry will become puritanistic, whatever is the right word for that. You will travel only for pleasure. You will travel only for
Absolutely.
leisure.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I have one more point. Sorry for taking a little more time. There's one question which we missed out. Somebody said digital learning is going to create social divide. I'll briefly address that and come out of it. Okay. Digital learning is going to create digital divide. It's not going to create social divide because we need to understand these terms very, very clearly. Social divide is existing. It has to be addressed through a variety of measures, which we can talk about later. Digital divide is those students who do not have access to internet, those students who do not have devices to actually go through online courses, and those students who do not have electricity in their area and the bandwidth of internet, even if internet was present. I think government will have to very quickly take the excuse of pandemic and ramp it up. In Telangana, as I witnessed in Hyderabad city, during the lockdown, the municipal administration team has quickly redone all the roads. They repaired, they broke down some structures that were unwanted. Similarly, if you're on a mission mode, you can definitely create what is called infrastructure to bridge this digital divide for the students who are not able to access. I think in one of your earlier interactions, you mentioned that some organizations have shipped Wi-Fi routers and devices and various instruments to the homes of the employees. Similarly, various schools, either private will have to support public or as a charity it has to be sent out. Some devices will have to be given to those children. Then internet has to be there. Electricity will have to be there. And accessing it from television, accessing it from loudspeakers under a tree is not going to work. Real digital divide has to be bridged with real intent, and the real intent will come from the caring leadership. Caring in the sense CARE in real terms. Otherwise, it will not happen.
One last question, and this is exclusively for Mr. Rajesh. Which Israeli book did one of the speakers refer to? I don't know who referred to it. Did you or anyone else?
I didn't refer any Israeli book.
Any of you talk to about it?
I think
Uh,
what Rajesh has mentioned is that we look at Israel, their tactical approach to problem
yeah,
solving,
yeah, yeah. He talked about the single
and,
language and
and create your own playbook in India.
yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what he meant.
Yeah.
Right. That's what he meant.
If they want to get a book, then they can break a book by Martin Gilbert, History of Israel, where the army and the PhD doctors were 1 kilometer away. For every kilometer that the army got, the PhD started they started tilling the soil. That's why Israel exports more fruits and vegetables than Egypt, which has Nile.
Oh, fantastic. Very interesting point. Thank you very much, Mr. Sudhakar Rao, Mr. Sudhir, Mr. Rajesh. I hope those who participated in this webinar learned a lot. We shared a lot of thoughts. And thank you very much to each one of you. Over to Praveen.
Oh, thank you, everyone. So it was interesting to know how these business environments are changing and how the industry is responding to these changes. And also, I like the point which Sudhir made. It's all about learning, and Mr. Sudhakar added to that, saying it's only the smarter ones or the smarter businesses that will survive today than the fittest ones. So thank you, Giri, for managing the discussion, and thank you, Mr. Sudhakar, Sudhir, Rajesh, for your valuable insights. brand-comm thanks the audience in particular, and hope the session was very helpful for all of us.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you. I have learned a lot. Thank you very much for this
Thank you.
opportunity.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.